What's up everybody, 40 the Broadway Saiyan here, and welcome back again to my YouTube channel with another video on Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis. In this video, I'm going to be giving you guys my comprehensive guide to the best wind damage users currently in the game. Now the reason that I am making this guide is, as we've seen, we had an event recently with Crash Sephiroth where the wind element was very important, and now upon the making of this video, 2 days from now, we're going to have another event in the next dungeon ranking event where the wind element is going to be very important for enemy weakness. So this guide will help you guys understand which characters produce the best wind damage, and then I'll give you guys my insight on which character I think would be your best choice overall. Now I want to give a special shout out to this video to my boy Kaiser. He's been extremely helpful in helping me make some of my videos, and as well as being extremely helpful in my Discord, helping players, get through some of the hard stuff and give them suggestions for Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis. So thank you so much to Kaiser for helping me create this video. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with this guide. The way I'm going to do this is I'm going to show you guys a character who currently has access to a wind-based damage weapon. I'm going to show you a build that you could use, and then I'm going to give you guys a reason as to why you should use the build. The first character is going to be our very most recent character, young Sephiroth, who just got not only a weapon but also a costume that amplifies his wind damage. So for this build, you're going to want him to have his Dark Harbinger costume. On his main hand, you want his Dark Heavens. For his secondary, you want that Shinra Blade Model 1 because it does give an ability boost, which is super useful. And then for his sub-weapons, you're going to be wanting the Apocalypse, the Pulse Gun, and the Killer Hornet. And for materia, I'm going to be saying this across the board for every character on this video. Focus on what stats you need. So synthesize, focus on what you need, and then whatever is needed for the fight, that's what you're going to want to bring. So why this build for young Sephiroth? Well, with his new weapon and costume, he has arguably become the strongest wind DPS in the game, even more so than Aerith, because he is a physical damage dealer with his wind build, and they are easier to build and currently have better options. Now, one may ask, well, why don't you give him motor drive if he's a physical damage booster? Well, here's the thing with motor drive. Since it is also a physical damaging weapon, it's a good option in your sub weapons during the lower overboost stages. But as you start to build this particular build for Sephiroth and you get to the higher overboost stages, you're going to reach a hard cap with physical attack, and then any other points that you have is going to go to waste. So that's the reason why motor drive was not listed on that build. But overall, young Sephiroth has become, in my opinion, the best wind damage dealer in terms of being able to deal single target wind damage, which is very important for difficult boss fights. The next character we're going to talk about is going to be Aerith. So Aerith also received a weapon and a costume that focuses on wind damage. The first one we're going to have equipped on her is Prism Dress for her costume. That's a given. Main hand is going to be Sun Umbrella, and I'm going to be getting into that as to why that's on her main hand, while her secondary is going to be using her wind weapon, which is her Prism Rod. Sub weapons, you're going to want Apocalypse, you're going to want Pulse Gun, and then you're going to want either one of the three for the third slot, depending on what stats you want. You want Heavy Hauser, Power Soul, or Mithril Type 0 Katana. And again, for materia, focus on what stats you need. So why this build for Aerith? So Sun Umbrella needs to be on her main hand because it gives her a massive magic attack and magic ability potency. You're going to definitely want that because she is going to be a magic damage dealer. So that's why we have that on her main hand. Prism Rod's wind potency will suffice in second hand, and support materia honestly is pretty bad on this weapon compared to some of the other weapons, which is the reason why we have it on your secondary rather than your main. And then Prism Rod on your main, if you still want to use it, will cause a 15% damage loss compared to if you have Sun Umbrella on your main hand. So that's the reason why we have Prism Rod on the secondary. You could still use it if you want to, it's just you will see a damage loss overall. Sub-weapon choice will grant more wind potency, attack, and another boost ability potency in the max stance. It's 75% extra damage total in the max stance, which is huge. And then Tifa's Power Soul and young Sephiroth's Type 0 Katana can be subbed for that Heavy Hauser for more survivability and an additional 5% boost in magic ability potency, since Aerith is magic damage primary with this build. So that's going to be the reason why this build is for Aerith. Again, you want Sun Umbrella on your main hand because you want as much magic attack, and that magic ability potency is just too good to pass up on. And also Prism Rod's support materia is pretty bad compared to her other weapon, so that's the reason why we're still using it, but it's on our secondary hand. Next character is going to be Tifa. So Tifa actually already had access to a single target wind damage weapon before the other two did. So the costume that you want on her is Metal Foot. That's going to be the costume you can get from the gear exchange. Main hand is going to be her motor drive, and then secondary is going to be Sonic Striker. That's a given because it gives her the best amount of offensive boost in terms of a secondary weapon. For sub weapon, you're going to want Killer Hornet or Enemy Launcher or Cutlass, depending on what you want. I personally like Killer Hornet. It's just super flexible on a physical damage dealer. And then afterwards, you're going to want Apocalypse and you're going to want Pulse Gun. And same thing with Materia, focus on the stats that you need. So why this build for Tifa? Well, being a physical damage dealer, Tifa, again, is far easier to build, just like young Sephiroth. And with the optimum build, her and Aerith and even young Sephiroth are actually much closer in damage output. The only reason those two really exceed her right now is because of their costumes. But do you take into consideration future content such as future dungeon ranks, boss events, etc., which may require strong wind damage? You're going to be sacrificing Aerith's unmatched support if you're going to be running her as a damage dealer. And then Sephiroth right now is like, it's a hit or miss. You either want him as magic with his ice damage or wind. However, most of us built him already for magic, so you may be short on resources. So, you know, honestly, Tifa is going to be the top choice for efficiency in terms of a wind damage dealer. Now, you guys may be asking, well, don't you want to give her Dark Heavens in her sub weapons? Well, here's the thing. Just like with young Sephiroth, once you start reaching those higher overboost levels, you're going to start to cap out on physical attack, which you don't want to end up, you know, putting way too many points, because the extra points are going to go to waste. So you want to be able to spread your points out when you get to the higher overboost levels. Next character is going to be Zack. So for your costume, you want Valiant Suit. That's from the gear exchange. For his main hand, this is going to be interesting as well, Cutlass or Type 0 Longsword. For a secondary, you're going to want his Falchion, which is his wind weapon. For your sub, you're going to want Killer Hornet, Apocalypse, and Dark Heavens. Or you can also run Motor Drive, whichever one that you have on hand. And then for Materia is whatever stats that you need. So why this build for Zack? Well, his current wind DPS is AoE, so he's not going to be nearly as effective as our single target damage dealers. However, this setup will give him the points via our abilities needed to still deal fairly competitive damage with his wind weapon, even if it is an AoE damage dealing weapon. Now, Cutlass or Type 0 Longsword is going to be better in his main hand over Falchion for the boost that they give. A Type 0 Longsword gives, you know, attack, and then afterwards Cutlass has that, you know, physical ability boost, which is massive, because at overboost 10, that's 48 points, which is crazy. But, you know, if you want to have Falchion on your main hand, you could still do that. However, the damage loss on it is not worth it. Even though it does give him physical attack and wind damage boost, having Cutlass or Type 0 Longsword is going to be better in the long run, so that way his damage actually stays competitive if you're using him for wind damage. Finally, the last character who has a wind weapon is going to be Lucia. So your costume, you're going to want Black Stealth, again coming from the gear exchange. Your main hand is going to be Pulse Gun. So your secondary, you have three options in my opinion: Barn Swallow, Tranquilizer Gun, and Mad Minute. For your sub weapons, you want Prism Rod, Apocalypse, and Sun Umbrella. And same thing with Materia, whatever stats that you need. Now, why this build for Lucia? Well, similar to Zack, Lucia's wind weapon is AoE. However, it is magic based, which it makes her a bit trickier to build. And honestly, between her and Zack, if I were to be objective and which to choose for wind DPS, I'd probably go with Zack, since it's going to be a little bit easier to build. For your secondary hand, it honestly really depends on what you want. Tranquilizer Gun gives her a self-heal and ability boost. Barn Swallow is one of those unique weapons that has the Diamond Sigil break. And then Mad Minute, which is actually a favorite of mine, has a useful debuff and also gives survivability and physical ability boost. Now, you will definitely want Sun Umbrella as your most important sub-weapon, because since Pulse Gun is magic, you're going to want to amplify her magic as much as possible. So with this build, give her as much magic attack as possible, and Prism Rod and Apocalypse will further boost her wind damage potency. Alright guys, well that is going to go ahead and conclude my comprehensive guide for the best wind damage dealers currently in the game. Let me know what you guys think down below. Let me know what characters you built in terms of wind damage, or which characters you're going to be taking into the upcoming event for that dungeon ranking event. Thank you guys again for watching. Stay tuned for the next video, and stay blessed everybody.